Good Friday afternoon. Brian Milam, Dave Baker. It is an all-blue preview and a Facebook Live Friday as well. A big week we just had with UK Athletics. We're going to have it again this weekend as number one Auburn comes to Rupp Arena. And then next week, the SEC Women's Tournament. The following week, we head to Nashville. It is that time where some of us hit the highways and fly the friendly skies.
Dude, I'll be your wingman.
You know what happens to Goose in the movie? Just saying. We don't need that happen.
Away, 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 away.
Huge.
I mean, they got to do that at Rupp Arena tomorrow, don't they?
That would be pretty good.
They got to do that.
Pretty good. Kentucky beating Oklahoma a couple of days ago, 82. Was it 82, 81, 83, 82? I can't remember already.
83, 82.
83, 82. Otega Owe. You know, when guys sometimes play their former schools, their former coach, they return to their home state, whatever it is, they put a lot of pressure on themselves internally. I thought Otega did that in the first half. Something clicked in the second half. He goes off, wins the game on offense, helps win the game on defense. And one of those games that Mark Pope said afterwards, we may look back in a week or two or three and say, look what we learned from this game and rally and do it again. You never know.
I don't know what clicked, but it may not have been a click, but he heard something from somebody or from a group of somebodies, because his trigger is just like yours. I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily be loud. It may just be the wrong thing at the wrong time. And all of a sudden it's like, whoop.
What are you saying?
Am I wrong?
I'm asking what you're saying.
I mean, it may just be one guy chirping from the other dugout.
Yeah.
I mean, it may have been the manager on the end of the bench, or it could have been one of those boosters that was sitting in the seats.
Boy, we got a quick show. Hey, I played dirty. I admit I played dirty. I was a dirty.
You did not play dirty. You played hard.
With a twinge of dirty play. I did.
Okay.
I admit it. I admit it. I did things that we'll talk about.
You were aggressive.
Yes, playing the game aggressively, one way or the other.
Buddy Harrelson.
Yeah, sometimes. But the Cats win. Brandon Garrison had a big game. It is one of those games, and again, it is difficult to imagine when you lose Lamont Butler, you lose Jackson Robinson, and Robinson again did not play the second half. You get Butler back for this game, so you don't know. It's a shuffleboard. You don't know who's going to be where.
More like a Ouija board.
Well, that too. The lights are going out.
Do you like me?
And somebody different steps up. Seemingly, It was Colin Chandler against Vanderbilt. It's Brandon Garrison and Owe here. It's just somebody different, and I think that's what is so much fun. Someone asked Mark Pope a couple of weeks ago, don't you think you need that go-to guy? And I'm paraphrasing, but he said, you know, we have a whole team of go-to guys. But we have a whole team of go-to guys. I mean,
seriously, we asked this question one day when I was talking to him. I mean, if you had to name who the go-to guy is on this team, who would it be? Depends on the night.
Well, it depends. You would think Amari Williams is at the head of the class or in the front row.
Because he's the sheriff.
That too. You'd think Kobe Brea would be, because Brea, UK has lost only once this year, and that was just the other day, I think, when he scores double digits or more. Owe had scored double digits the entire
27
season
straight,
until the game
other day
prior to Oklahoma. Then he rebounds with a 28 spot. So it's so much fun. And this weekend, number one Auburn comes to town. Bruce Pearl, the guy who wears sometimes that polo's a little schmedium, you know. He's always doing that. Hey, I wouldn't mess with the guy. Bruce Pearl's a bad dude, but he does kind of wear that polo that comes above the bicep, you know, right below the deltoid, just to show it off a little bit.
Kind of like he's got his own version of Bill Bryant. It's menswear. But if you remember when he first came in the league, what was he famous for?
Oh, he would wear, when he was at Tennessee, he would wear the orange blazer against UK.
But then he'd wear those shirts and he would.
He'd sweat through.
Oh my gosh, it would be a puddle.
Oh yeah, he saturated many a shirt. Quick Bruce Pearl story. SEC Media Day is in Nashville. Okay, this is several years ago. I go to the restroom. Bruce Pearl comes in, and this is right when Auburn is hit with that pay-for-play stuff. Chuck Person is involved. They don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
And I'm just
Sure looked bad.
Yeah, I'm about to exit the restroom, and I said, "Hey, Coach, how are you?" He goes and stands and does his thing. He goes, "Oh, I've been a lot better. How about you?" And it just the way he said it was funny.
Right.
But I tell you what, that guy has on several occasions in his coaching career, like the phoenix coming out of the ashes. This guy always reinvents himself.
If you remember that year, Auburn had a new president, and he wouldn't talk to the president. And I forget whether it was something to do with the game or not. And they were having a news conference. And he goes, "I see my president back there. Mr. President, I know you want to talk to me. I'll get to you just as soon as the season's over." Like, who's running this thing?
Hey, coaches run things. But Bruce Pearl, how can you not like him unless you have a rivalry with him? I think, he made Tennessee relevant again in a lot of ways. He, beat Cal when Cal was at Memphis, and Memphis was #1, and Tennessee beats Memphis, and then gets into the issue with the recruiting, comes to Auburn. He now has Auburn in a place very few people thought he could ever get Auburn. And they've gone to a Final Four. They have played, they've been so close to a national championship, and now he has a #1 team with his best player being a former Morehead State Eagle.
Some of us have talked extensively about that over the years. I'm still trying to contact people, and Brian will vouch for me.
I will.
There are some real stories that you people wouldn't believe.
Oh, those stories.
That I haven't made public yet. I don't know if I ever will, but I mean, they're there and they're real.
And as he says, you can either leave now or you can stay. But one thing is going to happen here today, folks.
Wow.
We may or may not have a story, but
no, but
there are a lot of back.
The deal is, I've never heard the story. Preston Spradlin,
my guy,
great dude,
covered
great
him at
coach.
Betsy Lane High School.
Okay, worked for Cal.
Yes, he did.
It was pretty obvious that Janai Broome was going to leave.
Yes, it was.
Did anybody from here? I would have had Orlando Antigua post up at the AAC. Post up.
Or at least on the ramp leading out of town, say, "Hey, you're not getting past us."
Sharkey.
The Farmer Sharkey exit.
But I still can't believe that he comes right through Lexington on his way to Auburn. And that was right at the start of NIL, right?
Oh, absolutely it was.
So, so at that point in time with that program, are you telling me that Auburn had more money than Kentucky did? My sense is that there were people here that really hadn't gotten into the NIL with both feet the way that they should. Is that fair or not?
That is fair. That is fair. And also, I will say this about Auburn and Janai Broome. The first year when he left Morehead State, goes to Auburn, lucky to have been eligible because the War Eagle and or Janai, they took it right up to the midnight second, not the midnight hour. You have to, just like with anything, if you're going to declare for a draft, you've got to be here. You want a media credential for a ball game, no later than Tuesday.
All entries must be submitted by 11:59:55 on Monday night.
And let's just say, there's an episode of MASH, one of my favorite episodes. Mm-hmm. A gentleman passes away, unfortunately. Yes. And I think it was on Christmas Day that he passes. And Hawkeye Pierce says, we don't want this gentleman to have on his death certificate Christmas Day. So what do? They take the clock back 10 minutes. Could have happened.
Turned back the clock.
Could have happened. Let's go back to the future type of thing. Just saying.
I think
draw your own conclusions.
I think charitably you'd want to say Auburn's on Central Time.
That's true. Hey, they get an hour. But he was lucky to have played that first year. And now he's in his year 3?
Gosh, is the
with
kid
Auburn.
Playing well? Is he something?
He's leading Auburn in minutes.
He's leading the league in minutes and everything.
He's leading his team in minutes, field goals made, field goals attempted, rebounds, assists, blocks, and I think that's it. but the dude is unbelievable. Also being left-handed.
2,500 career points between Moorhead and Auburn.
That's not too shabby.
77 career double-doubles. 17 this season.
That's not too bad either.
41 double-doubles since he got to Auburn.
Not too bad. Not too bad for a young man recruited by Betsy Lane's finest.
Oscar Shibwe was first in that category with 48.
Until.
And then with 44, Glenn Big Baby Davis had 44 in 2001 to 2023.
See, that's why he carries binders and notes and
Lions
things.
and tigers and bears. Oh, my.
Turn the page, Bob Ziegler.
Turn the beat around.
I don't know. Anyway, other thing to talk about, the UK women getting a win last night against Tennessee, just kicking the orange out of the Lady Vols.
Kenny dang Brooks.
Dude.
I mean.
Coach of the year?
Oh, my gosh.
SEC Coach of the Year, yes or no?
Gotta be, doesn't he?
NCAA Coach of the Year, yes or no? Depending, because when you look, where was UK ladies? Where were they last year? They're here now. They were not here last year.
They're
just being honest.
Rachel Baker, I think, is now the senior women's athletics director over at UK.
Okay.
She had worked for the NCAA, went to school and played basketball at Berea. And she is as I understand it, she is apparently the person that was waving the flag and pointing Mitch Barnhart to Kenny Brooks.
Yeah.
And I mean, they say that, you know, when you're in athletics administration, thing you're judged on most are your hires.
Sure.
And if that's the case, whoa, she got a nice road in front of her.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
I mean, that's amazing.
Now, the women have one more game against South Carolina this weekend on the road in Columbia. Kentucky currently sits at the number 4 seed.
Yes.
That last double bye. A huge weekend. Last night had LSU defeated Alabama. We're not having this conversation about what I'm about to mention. UK would have locked up the 4 seed because LSU lost in overtime to Alabama. Kentucky and Alabama are now tied going into the last game of the season at the 4-5 edge.
I'm going to give a lot of credit to Greg Byrne, the Alabama athletic director. Christy Curry was the Alabama coach. She did not get it going early, but he stuck by her.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, she was an assistant coach for Kim Mulkey.
Really?
And so, you know, their battle, it was a great game last night. But I'm just telling you, I mean, the other thing is listen, guys like you and I think I mentioned this before, and I don't want to belabor the point. We have a chance sometimes we might go off the rails a little bit. If I believe I'm right about this, I believe neither Pope nor Brooks have gotten a technical this year. I can count on one hand the times I've seen those guys get visibly upset. That doesn't mean they're not competing, but they are so good at instilling a calmness while yet correcting and encouraging their players. Is that fair?
And the officials.
Right.
I've always thought this. I loved Bobby Knight. I loved watching him. I thought I could play for him at a younger age. I thought probably couldn't have, but in my mind I thought I could have. And you see Patino, and you see Calipari. You see guys who are really wired. And then you see someone, let's say, like Mark Pope. You see someone like Mark Few. You see someone like John Thompson at Georgetown years ago. Imposing figure, and if he said something, you knew more than likely they were right. I've always thought if you put more pressure on the official, that's not a good thing. But if you say to them, what did you see? Okay, here's what happened, and wait till you see it later. You're going to understand. If I blow my gasket, you're going to know you were in the wrong. Mm-hmm. And I think that, especially in today's time, it worked in the 70s and 80s if someone jumps all over somebody else. But I've always thought in today's time, we must have a conversation. And if you have a conversation and then I get mad, now you know I'm serious and something's wrong.
And it's so amazing, too, because, you know, last week we were talking about Pope and his cornucopia of individuals from different backgrounds and demographics and the way he talks and everything. But his building is like a cornucopia. I mean, like he played for Pitino. He coached for Mark Fox. And both of those guys would be in the upper 10 percentile of short fuses. He played for Larry Bird in the NBA, and he talked about how much he learned from him. And then along the same lines, Bruce Pearl, in his post-game news conference, I'm paraphrasing here just a little bit, but he basically said he had the most advanced 5-out offense in basketball. Not in college, not in the SEC, in basketball. And I mean, it's just, I just don't remember a year in college athletics, and I'm sure somebody could correct me, and I'm probably forgetting somebody, where there have been 2 major hires like this made in an athletics department that, as Chico,
at the same time,
as Chico Escuela would say, was a big home run.
Basketball been very good.
Very, very good.
Let me finish the thought as we both went down a rabbit hole. Kentucky and Alabama are tied. If both Alabama and Kentucky win or lose, Kentucky is the 4 seed next week in Greenville. If Kentucky loses and Alabama wins, Kentucky is the 5 seed. Alabama goes to Oklahoma, I believe that's correct.
Yes.
And Kentucky goes to South Carolina. So a lot on the line. Also depends on whether I leave Wednesday or Thursday for Greenville. So come on, Cats, and get a win, or Alabama get a loss.
Have you checked your travel route yet ever since
no, I haven't.
all that flooding and everything?
No, I haven't. I thought I might be having to travel through West Virginia and go the long way. I don't
Almost
know.
heaven.
Almost, but it's not. And back to live action.
Okay, here's the deal. I understand what Bruce Pearl has done.
What did you just look at?
But Charles Barkley is not walking through that door.
Trouble.
Chuck Person ain't walking through that door.
No, he's not.
Johnny Mengelt ain't walking through that door.
Oh, wow, you're going way back.
Johnny Mengelt was their first really good player.
And hopefully tomorrow John Kaler doesn't come walking through that door like he did in 1988.
Boy, you want to? Oh my gosh, you want to talk about a night that the air completely went out of Rupp Arena?
I don't think UK was ever the same after that.
No.
Season.
And if I remember right, it was New Year's Eve, and they had they just like gotten to number 1 or something like that.
They were number 1,
and so the broadcast table is right here, and right there is the free throw line left at the visitors' bench, and right there is that circle at the top of the key. And that darn Kaler, it would be a 3 today. He caught that thing and went straight up, and it hardly touched a twig of nylon. I mean, and it's just.
And Rex missed an off-balance 3 at the buzzer that nearly went in. But Kentucky was a 2 seed the rest of that year, but then lost to Villanova in the second round in Birmingham, I think. But UK was never the same after that.
The BJCC.
Yes, exactly. That's also the last time Auburn played Kentucky in Lexington and won.
I think you're right about
I know I'm right. I looked that one up yesterday.
Look at you.
But Auburn has defeated UK something like 9 times since then, 11 times since then, something. All of them on the road or in postseason play. Neutral site.
I just thought of another one of those Auburn stories, great basketball stories that I can't relate, but as a teaser to the audience, I'll tell you after we're off the air.
All right, so much for that. Let's get out of here.
We'll see you tomorrow.
We do have high school districts tonight.
6 championships.
6 championships that we are going to be able to get to tonight.
But everybody that's in the finals, they move on, right?
Yes.
To the regionals. That's right.
Correct.
It's free. It's the last free night they get.
And a big win last night. I went to Paris. My favorite rivalry since coming to Lexington is Montgomery County and Clark County. Montgomery County, GRC, whatever you want to call them. George Rogers. Moco and Win City. Whatever names you want to give them. And last night,
who won?
Montgomery wins 60-55. First time
no,
since,
they didn't.
First time.
Was that the final?
Finals of the 40th district. So for the first time in a decade, 22-game losing streak to the Cardinals. The Tribe is hosting a gold trophy this morning.
The Fighting Jason Mays?
How about that?
Was this his first or second year? I can't remember.
This is his second year at Montgomery County. And it also goes to show, and if you're watching this and you know someone who lives in the Gate City, Montgomery County, he comes to Moco last year and everybody says, I thought he was supposed to be some heck of a coach. We're terrible. Give the man a moment to do what he needs to do, and guess what happens? They were 10-8 before Caden Reed, their point guard, became eligible. Since he became eligible, they're 9-2, and the 2 losses were to Trinity and GRC in triple overtime. And if they hit their free throws in that game, they win. So just give the man some time.
This is the beauty of this show.
Some time.
Because that's a perfect segue. Who was the most famous coach that happened to? Norman Dale when he went to Hickory.
Oh, man.
They had the meeting. They had the meeting as to whether or not he'll continue as coach or not. And Jimmy comes walking through the church door and says, I'll play.
You know, Jimmy Chitwood, we're going to leave you with this. Gene Hackman passes away this week at the age of 95.
He hated that movie.
He hated the movie. So did Dennis Hopper.
He hated that movie. He thought it was going to be a stinker.
If you go back and watch that movie, there is a scene when Dennis Hopper and Gene Hackman are on the side. It's part of a winning streak.
Yes.
And they're on the side laughing at each other. What they were saying in that moment, we're like, well,
two of the greatest actors we've had.
Paraphrasing.
Yes.
You realize this is going to be the worst film of all time, and this is probably our last job.
Yes, that's exactly right.
And they kept it in the movie because it flowed with Hickory winning. Back to Jimmy Chitwood. Maris Valanis, great name. He only has 3 speaking parts in the entire movie.
Yeah.
And he is the central character of the team. And he goes, I got something to say.
Yep.
And then he proceeds to say, I think it's time I start playing ball again. I told you once we got rid of him. I play, coach stays. He goes, I go. And then the next thing he says,
most famous one,
I'll make it.
I'll make it.
And that's it. Those were all of his lines.
I'll make it. And I just think, because you hate to lose somebody like that, but they listed all of Hackman's great movies, and he was a 2-time Oscar winner. But they did not list the replacements.
Well, I couldn't get into that.
But how can you not like the line where he's going up there to Keanu Reeves and says, what do you want to do? I want the ball. Winners always do. And then he makes this play call.
Gene Hackman was not a coach in any shape, form, or fashion.
No.
He said he liked watching the NBA, but he had to improvise and just watch other people coach. And Gene Hackman has passed at the age of 95. Lex Luthor to Norman Dale to so many.
Popeye Doyle in The French Connection.
Which is a great movie, by the way. But he passed at the age of 95. So we're going to get out of here. Well done. And if I had the movie clip ready to go, which we may show later tonight, he would just sit there and say, for Dave Baker and Brian Milam, I love you guys. Have a good night, everybody.